I'm Niti. So this is a topic which is, I think, the most thought of, and we have most questions here. And we'll just start off with the slide that we last stopped at in our previous talk, which is this. While we all love our children, we also need to think of if that love is helping our children, right? So we call it intelligent love. So it is part of the adult's nature to love the child. The love of the adult for the child is instinctive. It just comes, right? We don't have to give it second thoughts. But it is certain, therefore, that if we impede the child from following the single road of development, if we force the child to go off the road of development, what makes us do so is not a lack of love. It's not that we don't love our child, but a lack of knowledge. It is because we are ignorant. Love, in order to fulfill its function in human life, is in need, like everything that belongs to the human personality, of education. So everything in the human personality needs education, and so does the function of love needs education. That's to educate ourselves as adults. So this is a quotation by A.M. Houston. He was Dr. Montessori's, he was trained with Dr. Montessori, and then he became a trainer, and he did courses in India along with her. So let's think of then how do we educate ourselves as parents, as adults? Because it has to begin from first understanding of how to love our children. And from where does this education begin? So this education of adult has to begin from birth. We need to understand that education for children does not start at school, does not start at 6 or any other random age or criteria or place. It begins from birth. It begins where life begins. Because education is essentially an aid to life. And life begins, right? Life begins by birth. So when we have a newborn baby, it's something to think about. So when we do something for a child, for example, we give him a bath, or we change the child, or when we carry the child, when we pick up the child, or we help the child, put them to bed, etc., or when we feed the child, we must let him or her know that it is time for so and so, time for bath or time to change. We must prepare the bath in front of him, placing it at such an angle that he can see us. He will watch and be very interested. We must do everything carefully, and then we must invite the child. Now, my little darling, would you like a nice bath? He will understand the expression. He may not understand the words, but he will definitely understand the tone and the touch and the expression that you're showing, and will gradually become more and more conscious of what is happening around him and to him. And it's something to think about. Have we done that? Because it is needed. Life has begun. Education needs to begin as an aid to life. An education for ourselves as adults, as parents, an education for the child. And I'm sure most of us are thinking we probably didn't do that. It didn't occur to us. Maybe we were not aware. Maybe it felt odd to talk to this little baby who is not really responding like we think they should. Maybe we feel that they're too young to be told all these things. But it turns out that it is really, really important that we talk to our child. Talk to any child. I mean, if you're visiting a child, a newborn baby, we must interact with the children in this manner. It's not something, it's not an object to be picked up and done to. It is a life. It is a human being which needs which is feeling, which is sensing so many things around, and is constantly learning and constantly making a framework in their minds. So this sort of interaction is something we probably missed, which was very important. That's something to keep in mind. So what is really needed for this human to flourish, for this child to develop? It is interesting to notice, Dr. Montessori says, that where life is simple, in the homes where life is simple and natural, in the families where life is natural, and where the children participate in the adult's life, they are calm and happy. So that's what really children need. They need a very simple life. They need a very natural life. They don't need any luxury. They don't need any entertainment. They are constantly watching the adults around, and they are watching. Nature guides them. Nature has instilled this energy and this power and this drive towards following and doing, noticing what adults are doing. So really, they need to participate in this adult's life to become calm and happy, to feel fulfilled and to develop. So you can see a young child here blooming. There is a small broom with the child which they can use. So it's in such a way that the child needs utensils to eat in. The child needs an access to the utensils so that you don't have to give the child the utensils or whatever they need every time. Access to their clothes, access to cleaning equipment, and such. So basically, that the adult life has to be offered to the child as well, in child size, to the child's access, and the child needs to participate in this life. Another aspect that we need to think of. Did we really do that when our children were growing up, when they were 1 or 2, when they were little, they began to, after this young baby, they have begun to hold things, they have begun to crawl, they have begun to move and explore around. So have we really involved them in the life of the adult? Probably not. Probably what we did was we kept things away from them. We thought, oh, they're too young to do this. They will mess it up. They don't know how to use these materials. Why do they keep, getting attracted to? Why do they keep touching everything around them? So we were not aware. We were very assumptuous. We had a lot of judgments about young children, and probably what we thought was, this is what we did. This is where we went wrong. We fed them. We fed them as much as we thought that they would need to eat. We fed them when we thought it was time to eat. We fed them even when they were capable of holding things. They were capable of carrying things. We dressed them. We did not, even if they were curious, we said, no, you're doing it all wrong. You're wearing the shoes in the wrong foot. Let me do it. Let me do it faster. We are in a hurry. We are in a rush. We got clothes for them which they were not able to handle. Laces which they were not, the dressing buttons, and the kind of dressing mechanisms which they were not able to handle themselves. Complicated. We made life complicated for them. We did not realize that it has to be really simple, that the child wants to participate. And then what we gave them to engage them with was maybe stuffed toys, plastic toys, toys with flashy music and lights. And often we realize that maybe they were initially curious with these objects that we've got them, that we bought for them. And often they were very expensive and, branded. They did not show much interest after a point. They were rather interested in, the kitchen, what's happening in the kitchen, or what's happening in the laundry area, what's happening in the washroom when we take a bath. They are even interested in the gadgets that we have, because they constantly saw adults around them doing all these things. They did not see us playing with these toys. They did not see us do things with these stuffed toys, right? So we really have to think, where did we go all wrong? So the child grew up for all these years, for the very crucial initial years, the first year, the second year, the third year, often, it comes into the fourth year with a lot of unfulfilled potential. Their hands could do so much. Their bodies were capable of so much. Their mind could be productively used and developed. The connections in the brain were there to, form. And then they're left with all this unfulfilled potential. So what should we have done? We need to understand, we know from our understanding of Montessori, now with all these parent discussions, that children have very important work. Just like we have work to do, they also have work to do, which is very different from adults' work. They don't wash things, or they don't climb stairs to reach a place. They don't wash things to clean, to reach a goal. They often do it repeatedly, right? They go up the stairs and they want to come down back. They want to climb the stairs again. If they're washing something, even if the dish is clean, they would go again and again. They would repeat their movements. So there is something else that is going on in the child. There is something else that is the work of the child. The child that has to adapt himself to the environment. The child has to adapt himself to the environment, because they are not born with certain movements like animals are. Human children have very different, development to happen after birth. Animal children are fully functional. The movements that are necessary for their life are already inbuilt. And often, if you notice nature, other animals, some of these animals don't even have adults around. I can hear my own sound.
There's echo.
I think it's fixed now. Right? So we need to understand this concept in nature, that animal children and human children are very, very different. So there is a part of development, psychological development, which human children need to do after birth. And Dr. Montessori called it adapting to life. So whichever culture a child is born into, whether it is Japan, whether it is of south of India, whether it is a European culture, whatever, African culture, um, children need to adapt to that kind of life that society has to offer, the culture. How do we eat? What do we eat? How do we? What are the kind of clothes that we wear? What is the language that we speak? How do we behave with each other? What are the rules of the society? All of these things are dependent on the culture and the place and the time that the child is born into. Right. So if a child was born into a Roman civilization, they would need to adapt to that place's culture and the times culture. But a child born in today's modern world has to adapt to a very different kind of lifestyle and culture. So the real work of the child is to adapt himself to the environment, which is done after birth. And that can only happen. It can only adapt to it by copying others. If children did not copy, imagine if this ability, if the nature's gift was not there with children to copy, each man, each human would start a new civilization, and there would be no continuity in society, in our culture. Human evolution is continuous. We are here because human evolution has been continuous because of these small children who copied the older ones. The continuity of man is not a result of heredity, like in other animals, but of imitation. So this evolution, this adapting in other animals is over a very, very long period of time. But in humans, we have to adapt very quickly. We have to evolve very quickly to the kind of place that we are born into, the culture that we are born into. And that is why, we have this power to imitate. The children imitate us. They're constantly observing us, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you would like it or not, whether it is a positive behavior or a negative behavior. Whatever it is that the adults around the child are doing, The child is constantly observing and imbibing, they're absorbing, and they will mimic, they will imitate. Just, I mean, it's not a choice that they have. They must do it. It's nature's drive inside them. And that is the work of the child. So what is our role then in this, with this understanding, what do we do? What is our role in their development? The child sees the same action repeated at the same time every day in the same way. And the child watches us, they see, okay, when we get up, this is what we do. When mama is, doing XYZ work, this is how she's maybe doing the laundry or doing the cleaning, or when papa and we do the laundry, this is what the washing needs to be done in a certain way. This is how utensils are washed in the house. This is how food is prepared in the house. This is how we come together for meals. When we go out, this is the process. This is the process of, when somebody visits us, this is what we do. So every time any routine is happening in the house, the same action is repeated, the child is observing, and this really attracts their attention. Children have a sense of the succession of activities in time. It is like a muscular memory, a memory of movement and of time. So children are really absorbing, but what we often forget is our life can be unpredictable. Sometimes we mix up routines, sometimes because we are aware of that, and children are often not. And we forget, we don't understand that children need to, um, be in tune of what is happening in adult life. They thrive on order, on orientation. So if we need to change something, if something different needs to happen in our day, or in tomorrow, or maybe we need to change things in the house, we often forget to involve the child in that process. And that really troubles them. And then they get confused, and then they feel unsafe. Because although you knew the change and you adapted to that new change, the child did not, they were not aware of it, and they were not helped to adapt to that change. So it will really help in their development. We need to understand as adults that if they have consistent routines, a place where everything belongs, an order in the environment, that really helps them feel calm. That really helps them know what to expect. And then they can really function better if they know what to expect. So we need to think, if the home environment, the physical environment is in place. Do we have a specific place for things? Are they accessible to the child? Do we have a routine in the house when we get up in the morning, and if we have to come to school? Do we have a routine in place? Does the child know what to do? Where are the things that the child needs? Is the child involved in that process? And what are the challenges? Of course, our life has become very, very hectic. We know that. And this is unnatural. It is not natural for our lives to be so rushed and chaotic. And I'm sure you can, very well relate to all these social situations. Dinner tables, when you're meeting your extended family, we are often on our gadgets. And sometimes it's important to see from the child's perspective. It is very important to see from their perspective. This is what they see. This is the kind of culture that they're observing, that we are all distracted. We are not connected to each other. Humans really need connection, don't we? I mean, all this research, the harmful impacts of technology is coming through. We already know what is happening to our lives. And then we are flooded with this unnecessary advice from social media, from different people out there telling us, this is good for you to buy. This is the kind of lifestyle you need. This is what the personalities and the film stars are. This is we're these people often, the kind of things that are happening in the celebrity life now is trickling down to common people's lives. We think this is how we must live. This is what happiness is. And if you look at the kind of things which are available for children these days, the kind of stores and the kind of commercialization around children's clothing, children's toys, and whatnot, it is not with the understanding of what children really need, what is sufficient and necessary. Rather, it is we are being told that this is what you need, this is what you need to buy. So the mall culture, how often, I mean, we see in this environment with children coming in, they're often talking about going to the mall. Their experiences are not about being out in nature or, meeting friends and family. They're often talking about, they feel it's something to look forward to, going to the mall. So these are our challenges. We are not taking care of ourselves. We are distracted. We have a very unhealthy diet with lots of processed food. We lack sleep. We are so busy in our hectic lives and in our work schedules that we are often lacking sleep. We are irritable. We are living a very unconducive lifestyle. And this is the kind of environment that the children are growing up. So this is another thing that we need to think about. How can we help them if we are ourselves not sorted? We really need to regulate ourselves. So if we take a step forward to help our children to understand what they need, we need to first think about what do we need? What do we need? How do we need to change our lifestyle? How do we take care of ourselves as adults? So the only solution is this, we need to figure out how do we become the best person possible in the lives of our children that we love. Because really, if you can be the best version of yourself, the community and the society can be the best version of itself. Then we don't really have to think so much about what do we need to offer our children. It becomes second nature, it becomes a habit. If we fix ourselves, our lifestyles, our ways of thinking, if we start to reflect, most of the problems will go away for our children. So this is what we need to do. We need to stop. We need to breathe, think, and actively choose. Consciously choose. Choose in every moment, what is important for me right now, especially when you're with your children, when your children are around. When you have work to do, you will often see children coming to you, children around you, and please do notice that you're distracted. We don't make eye-to-eye connection. We don't connect with our children so much anymore. And what do they do then? When they see us like this, what is the only resort that they have? So this is something important for us to know about children. The behaviors to which you give emotional attention will continue because that's what they're seeking, right? They do need connection. They do need to feel safe. So they will try to get your attention. So what behaviors do we want to see in our children? If the children are fine, they're around, they're doing something, we don't really notice them. But when do we leave all our work and give them our full attention? It's when they are showing any negative behavior. That's when they end up, they think, oh, biting worked. When I bit somebody, it, immediately my parents gave me their full attention. Even if it is that we are angry or we are upset or we are giving them a lecture, but we do give them attention. When they throw stuff around, when they break things or damage things, it instantly catches our attention. And they get lots of connection from us. So that is what they're thinking. My parents leave everything and come rushing to me when I. Now we need to decide how do we fill those blanks? What kind of behaviors do you want to see? So there, people have really divided the behaviors into three kinds. Positive behaviors, these make us smile, they make us feel happy, they are a joy for us. Bothersome behaviors or negative behaviors which annoy us, which we feel irritated about and which we feel angry about, and they're a problem for us. And then there are neutral behaviors, which is something that probably we've never given thought to. And they're very important. It turns out they're very important. And most of the time, uh, we don't really give a lot of attention to the positive behaviors and the neutral behaviors. We are mostly giving attention to the bothersome behaviors. And when they get your full attention, they kind of repeat it. So I think we are starting to see the problem here. It is very important for us to connect at neutral times. These are times when there is neither a positive or a negative behavior. When we see our children coming, when we pick our children from school, for example, or when we are just entering a room where the child is, maybe the child is working with something, or maybe the child is looking at you, you just exchange a look. Maybe it's a neutral time when the child is not expecting, maybe when they're eating, when we're just sitting in the car. You can think of what are the neutral times when there is nothing really, any major happening, any major thing happening. There is nothing positive happening or nothing negative happening. These are the neutral times. So why does paying attention during neutral times make a child feel unconditionally loved? This is when the child realizes that I'm valued. When they're not, so you're not really, it doesn't matter what the child is doing. You care for them and they are valued. You love them unconditionally. If you increase your connection with your child during these times, the neutral times, you will see that gradually their negative behaviors will reduce because they have got the attention and the connection from you at other times when they were not expecting it, maybe. They don't really have to ask for it. You're there for them. So during meals, when you feel that the child is around in the room and maybe you're working, give them a look, give them a smile, give them a hug. Say something to them, ask them about their day, tell them about something, tell them something interesting that happened with you, or you met some friend, or you spoke with a friend. Tell them, share with them genuinely as you share with perhaps other important people in your life, adult people in your life. Talk to them as a friend sometimes. Cherish life. Talk about something you saw in nature. Or ask them something, something which is a genuine conversation. It doesn't need to be a very lengthy one. So if you start to, first of all, identify all these neutral times in the day, and then consciously start to give a little bit of attention, not too much. Give a little bit of positive attention, in any way that you like. Give a high five, different things in the day. Then you will start to see a change in your child's attitude. And of course, appreciate the positive behaviors. If your child, um, you know, helps in the kitchen, or your child puts something back at the right place, you say, don't say good job or well done, or don't do a clapping, etc. Or don't say good boy or good girl. Just say, oh, I appreciate that. I noticed how you were winding up the work. Something like that. Something which helps them feel good about their own behavior, rather than showing them what you feel about it. Right? When a child walks in the room, your child or anybody else's child, do your eyes light up? That's what they're really looking for. Toni Morrison, this is the first African American woman to get the Nobel Prize for Literature. So the reason we have all these other quotations and references is also to understand that this is not something that only Dr. Montessori says. This is a very well done research, and these are things that other um, uh, people who are educators, who are psychologists, who are authors, and people who are observing sociologists and anthropologists, they are all coming towards the same understanding. Slowly we are trying to understand and fully grasp what human children are like and what do they need. It is not just Montessori. So if some parent, if you really understand what is the potential of these children, what are they capable of? Every time a child walks into the room where I am in, I really make it a point to look at the child, to give a warm smile, and just to imagine, this is the future. These children are capable of so much. They are full of potential. And I imagine, they become into these very wholesome adults doing good work, very mature people who are helping change the world in a very positive way. So think about your child in those lights. So when you see your child, feel very warm and very positive and very hopeful for our planet's future. And when we think about what are the needs of the children, we've all seen this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when we started the session, we discussed about understanding the children's behaviors. So what is it that the children need? How are we taking care of the child? So at the very bottom is that, of course, we are all taking physical care of the children. Their diet, we make sure that they are getting a healthy diet, they are hygienic, they are being bathed, whatever, they are getting their medical visits, etc. They have a healthy body and they get good sleep. This is very important. But there are so many other needs that perhaps we forget. So the child really needs to feel safe, as we discussed. They need to feel trusted. They need to feel trust in the adults around them. They need to understand if their routine is predictable. They need to know what to expect. And is it okay? Is my home okay? Are the people around me okay? Can I believe them? Can I trust them? So think about, are there ways in which we are probably giving the message that we cannot be trusted? Are we sneaking out once we drop them somewhere? Are we not sharing about any change that is to happen? Do they know what to expect? If there are visitors in the, that if you're expecting any guests in the house, do the children know? Who are these people? When will they come? What will we do when they come? If we are going to travel somewhere, are they involved in advance? Do they know where we are going? Whom we are going to meet? How we are going? When are we going? What are we going to pack for this trip? What is going to happen when we go to school? If the child is, any child who joins new, we make sure the parents understand this, that please prepare your child for this. So they must visit the school. They must meet the people that they're going to work with, the adults that they're going to work with. They need to be prepared. They need to pack their own bag, maybe. So all of these, aspects can help them feel safe, mentally safe, emotionally safe, um, which is really, then they can function normally. If one is not feeling safe in any environment, they don't function normally. And it happens with us also. Then the next thing that they need is they need to feel valued. Does my family believe in me? Am I a valuable member, or am I being treated like a guest in the house? Do I count? Right? Do my parents see me? Do they connect with me? Am I needed? Is it okay if I make errors? This is very important. Friendliness with errors. Often, we go in a cycle of automatic reactions. Many of us are not friendly with errors, and this is also because the way we have grown up with errors, right? So they need to feel this love and belonging from any of the adults around them, at home, at school. They need to feel this sense of connection, and then they need to be doing things. They need to feel capable that I can do it. They need to take care of themselves. Their hands are capable of holding things and carrying things. They can carry their own bag. They can brush their own teeth. They can squeeze out their own toothpaste. They can dress themselves. There are so many things that they are capable of doing. But are they doing them? Because if they're not, then they think that I am not capable. I cannot do it. Oh, this is too difficult. I will not do it. And sometimes it comes to a point where they're verbalizing it, because perhaps adults around them are verbalizing it in front of them. So they don't feel that their bodies and their minds are capable of doing things, and that is a very sad thing that children come to believe. Their self-esteem, their respect, they don't feel respected, and then they just give up. They say, no, no, you make me wear my shoes. You dress me. I'm not able to do it. It's too heavy. I cannot carry it. And then finally, when all these things, all these needs are being met, they can grow, they can become fully mature, they can learn about morality, which is the most difficult thing for anybody to learn, more than academics, morality. How to do the right things, even if they're hard at the right time. And we will come back to that later again. And there are very different models of needs now. This was probably the initial models of needs. So there are even models where it's not even in that hierarchy, it is more of a circular connection, that all of these are interconnected to each other, all of these needs. Because what is the point in being, in having a healthy body or having a good sleep and be physically well if they are not feeling safe, if they are not feeling belonged, right? So there are many different models of these needs coming up. But the idea here is to understand that every child has all of these needs. It's not just about taking care of your child physically. These are equally important in their life. So if, parents often ask, how do we fix this or how do we fix that? And we often, we are looking for a recipe. We are looking for some steps, do this, and then definitely this will be the result. And I hope we realize that it is not as easy. It is not a quick fix. It's not a remedy that somebody can give you. But at least we can start with this framework. Step number one is to understand that there is a natural development that is in place. Nature is driving children to develop in a certain way. We cannot override it. We cannot change that development. We can either be an obstacle to that development or we can aid that development. We have to decide. We have to identify if we are becoming an obstacle, if we are restricting, or are we really helping? Are we supporting? So we need to first be aware that there is a design in place in nature. So actually that is a very, big help. That is a gift from nature. So we don't have to put in as many efforts. Child, just like in the womb, the two cells meet and development happens. All we need to do is provide a safe environment to eat well, to feel well. But the development happens according to nature, according to its own pace. We cannot make the legs grow faster in the womb. We cannot make, okay, now we cannot decide now it's the time to build the heart. The heart will be created when it's time to be created. So, there are things that we cannot control. So we need to understand and we need to trust it, that it is the best way for our children to grow. And we need to remind ourselves from time to time about this natural development. That children behave, I mean, they have certain needs, they have certain characters. If they are behaving in a deviated manner, it's the problem is not in the child. There is something else that needs to be identified and fixed. There is never a problem in the child. The child is um, guided and driven to develop in a certain way. Next thing, the next part in the framework is for us to understand that what is our role? You know, is there something that we can do? So, can we be proactive? With our understanding of child development, can we be proactive? If we know that the child needs routine, and if we know that order really helps children to fully function and feel safe, can we proactively build a routine in the child's life? Can we proactively set the environment in our house in a way which is accessible to the child so that the child is independently using their body and their mind to function? Are we, what is it that we need to practice? Is the child getting enough opportunity to practice what they need to develop? Are we responding or are we reacting? In any situation, are we thinking about, okay, what is it here that what is the natural development of my child that is happening? What is it that the child needs right now? Am I giving that? Or am I just reacting out of impulse, out of our set behaviors? Am I reflecting on your own, mannerisms? What did I do wrong? What kind of, the choice of words that I'm using? What are the expressions that are coming to my face? Am I self-regulated? Am I taking care of myself so that I can support my child better? So these are the things which we can actually do. These are the things which are in our control. We cannot control the child's development. We can control if we are supporting the child's development. So, this is where we need to think of what we can do. Can we connect? Can we identify neutral times in the day and help our child, connect with our child so that the child doesn't need to behave negatively to seek our, attention and connection? And then finally, keep the end goal in mind. Keep in mind, imagine that fully functional grown adult that your child is developing into. That is the work of the child. Think about how can I help my child, make decisions? How can I help my child become independent? How can I help my child, um, you know, learn how to do XYZ work? Because really, what we want our child to become is a fully developed human being, and it is something that all of us want. So think long term. Think of the end result. Don't fall into any, short term objectives. So this is, keeping in mind, imagining that human being will help you not judge the child. It will help you imagine that what is the potential of the child. If you imagine the potential of the child in your mind, it will really help you um, guide the child in that process to attain that potential. So are we noticing? This is Ross Green. This is another child psychologist. He says, children do well if they can. So children will definitely do well. Children will definitely do the right things if they can. Challenging kids, children are not always challenging. They're challenging only when the expectations placed on them outstrip their skills. So think about the skills that they are having right now. Have I shown my child how to wear these pants? Have I shown my child how to rinse the dish when keeping it in the sink? Have I shown my child how to greet somebody? Have I shown my child how to use words when we are feeling angry, for example? Have I shown my child how to, ask for something rather than snatching it? So think about, have you demonstrated? Here in Montessori, we give them lots of presentations. That is always the first step. Before a child uses any material, any piece of material, we always show them how to use that piece of material. And then there must be plenty of opportunities for them to practice those skills. We might have shown them, but we are always doing it for them. We are not giving them enough opportunities to practice those skills. They need repetition. They need to repeat, and they will often do it. They will repeat multiple times, and only then they can perfect their movements. And when they do those, when they're practicing those skills, again, you need to observe. Have I observed how do they do it? And note the little challenges that they are facing, perhaps. Maybe some part of that, work, for example, making a bite. If they're eating chapati and some, sabzi, and how they make a bite. Notice how, if they are able to tear it in a, good enough size, are they able to scoop the vegetable in? Maybe they need a spoon initially. So if you observe what they are doing, their hand movements, you will be able to notice the challenges that they are facing in anything that they do. And then, are we building friendliness to errors and mistakes? Or are we constantly criticizing them? Think about, notice how you are talking to them. Sometimes we are often ranting, sometimes we are often giving them lectures. I've told you 5 times about this. Every time you do this, I tell you, but you don't listen. Sometimes we are talking to them in a way which is really not helpful. So observe those and be friendly to, errors, because they are not making mistakes intentionally, unless you are giving them too much attention when they're doing anything negative, and then they will seek that connection. So we need to build friendliness with errors. If something falls, something spills, something by mistake tears, we just show them how to fix it. Oh, this book page has torn. Oh, never mind, let's go and fix it. Then we'll show them how to turn the pages properly. We'll fix it in front of them. We will tape it. Or if something has spilled, we will show them how to pick it up in the dustpan. We don't judge them or comment them about the mistake that they have done. Trust the child. Even if the child has done it intentionally, don't focus on it in that way, because then you're going to end up them repeating that intentional behavior, negative behavior. And then notice their successes and how they feel about those, because when children are, after a lot of repetition, when children successfully do something, maybe button up or pour something or clean up something, they feel very, very satisfied. You will see that their face is calm. You might see a smile sometimes. You might hear a sigh of relief, like like when we do something which is very difficult and hard, and we feel successful at it, we feel, we give a sigh of relief, because we feel very satisfied. Even if nobody is complimenting us or applauding us, we still feel happy about that work well done. And please remember that it's not about me, but it's about them. So never, we don't do the clapping and anything else. Whatever, good work and good job is something that we don't. Another thing to understand is that they're developing their prefrontal cortex, and this is all neuroscience, and it's very interesting and very, it gives us a lot of satisfaction that whatever research and whatever observations Dr. Montessori had made about child development, the current, and at that time there were no tools or equipments or brain scans that we have today. But today the neuroscience is proving all of those things true. It's backing up and confirming all of those observations about children. So prefrontal cortex is a part of our brain which is really which is a very new part of the brain, of the human brain, and it takes very long to build. So I also have a short video, and perhaps I'll just play that to help you listen to that. And children are developing this prefrontal cortex, which helps them, regulate their body and their emotions and, morality. As you can see, all these functions are of the prefrontal cortex. So let me just play that video quickly and then we will open for question and answers. Can you see my screen, Divya? Divya, can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, okay, all right. And you can hear it as well, right?
The frontal cortex is arguably
Yes,
the
it is
most
audible.
human part of the brain. Proportionately, we've got more complex frontal cortices than any other species out there. It's the most recently evolved part of the brain. Frontal cortex, a big time frontal cortex, is virtually a primate invention. We're humans really running with it. What does the frontal cortex do? All sorts of complicated things, regulating executive behaviors and strategizing. On the very simplest level, what does the frontal cortex do? It makes you do the harder thing when it's the right thing to do. It makes you do something that's difficult when that's what you should be doing. The frontal cortex, okay, you want some terrible, utterly inapplicable metaphor. Frontal cortex is the nearest thing we've got to a superego, the nearest thing to a part of the brain saying, I wouldn't do that if I were you. You were going to regret it. The frontal cortex has this role manifest in all sorts of domains. For example, the frontal cortex makes you at a party do the right thing even though it's harder. You've just been served the most horrendous meal you can ever imagine, and it's your frontal cortex that kicks in that says, whoa, this is delicious, I've got to have the recipe. The frontal cortex is what gets you to compliment somebody's hideous new hairdo. The frontal cortex keeps you from being a serial murderer. It keeps you constrained. It keeps you in line. The frontal cortex is also something that kicks in a very dramatic way during early development. Most of us way back when had to suddenly get a lot of frontal function when we learned to be toilet trained. And that is something that soon moved from frontal executive control to implicit pathways. Most of us don't have to think consciously anymore about being toilet trained, but early on, that was one of the big initial frontal tasks that we had to master. Okay, so frontal cortex. Frontal cortex, all sorts of fascinating other features of it. And as just became clear, part of development, child development, is your frontal cortex maturing. And you can show the fact that kids don't have a whole lot in the way of a frontal cortex by brain imaging, things of that sort, and you find out something absolutely astonishing. The frontal cortex is the last part of the brain to fully develop. Your frontal cortex is not fully developed until around age 25. That is astonishing. That explains an awful lot of behavior in freshman dorms. That explains all sorts of things. The frontal cortex takes forever to develop, and thus childhood is filled with a frontal cortex that doesn't work very well yet. You can show this wonderful study, this wonderful experimental paradigm, where you take kids, and what you do is you put the child in a room and you put a marshmallow in front of them and you say, okay, here's the deal. I'm going out of the room. I'm going to come back in a while. And if you want, while I'm out of the room, you can have that marshmallow. On the other hand, if you don't eat it, when I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows. In other words, can you regulate your behavior, regulate this impulsive desire to grab that marshmallow? And kids very early on are awfully challenged in order to hold on and not grab the marshmallow early on. And in fact, there's a literature by now showing you take like 4-year-olds, and the longer they can hold on not taking the marshmallow, the more frontal regulation they have of their behavior. And that is in part predictive of things like SAT scores a decade later in high school. This is the mark of a frontal cortex that is developing in a very impressive manner.
Yeah. So So that is very interesting that, this is the part of the brain which activates the will, if you have the will to control your impulses. So children need to have plenty of opportunities every single day to develop this the frontal cortex. Yes. So we can now have some questions. Are there any in the chat, Divya? Or you could just
No,
unmute.
there are
can
none.
Okay. So you can unmute and ask the questions if you like.
You can raise your hands and ask your questions.
Or if you want to share anything or you want to add anything. Yes.
Hey everybody, good morning. Hi Niti, thanks for the session. My name is Garima.
Yes.
Uh,
Hi, Gaurav.
I understand about all you say things about regulating your emotions, but there are certain difficult days when the child does not, want to listen or participate, right? How can an adult in that moment take an active step to, connect with the child? Um, for example, like I have a 2.5 year old, and she often likes loves to throw things. And even if I'm holding her hands that no, we cannot hit, whatever you're throwing can actually hit someone. It's sometimes difficult to reach that connection with that younger child. And and I can tell you, hitting is not something that we perform in the house ourselves. So it's not something she's learning from us. So that's one of my trouble points.
Right. So, Garima, I mean, see, when we even describe these aspects, I mean, we can perhaps think that we are assuming that they like to, that, they love to throw things. And that is an assumption. Children do not love to, or they're not naturally, wanting to do anything negative. So it's possible that they are having a hard time. Maybe there is an unmet need, as we discussed in the slides, that there could be some aspects of their needs which are unmet. So it would really help not to wait for those moments to connect with your child. Look for some neutral moments in the day where you could, share a story, do some fun things together. Like I said, just bond with your child better and connect with them as a human being, not like a child. So it could be over so many things that we do in the day. You do chores together, reading books together, going out in nature together, and focus on, having more and more of these positive moments, connected moments. And then gradually over time, I mean, this is not a quick fix. Things will not happen in a day or two. You have to be at it and you have to have the trust in the child. So, so don't let your trust waver. It could be months sometimes. Sometimes we, see challenging behaviors in children which can take really long to phase out. But we must keep doing what we have to do. So often we, without realizing, we are judging and assuming things. So that is where the first block helps, your understanding of the child, the scientific understanding of the children. So are they, feeling emotionally safe? Do they trust the adults around them? Are they feeling capable? Are they doing, caring for themselves? Or are we doing things for them which they are fully capable of doing themselves? So it's something which is very independent, dependent on the family. It is very personal. Each family would be very different. But this broad framework should really help all of you.
Thank you.
Right.
We have another question from Isha.
Yes, please.
Yes, Isha.
Hi, I'm actually Varun, Isha's husband. So, great session, Niti. It's really insightful and really helpful. Just a few things that I would like to know.
Sure.
So it is not always possible to, regulate the emotions. At times, we find certain things that might put our child into the danger, right? And at that particular moment, the impulse to act on it takes over. So how do we control that? How do we regulate that emotion within ourselves?
Yes, absolutely. In places, in situations where it comes to this physical safety of the child, sometimes we do have to immediately respond, Um, uh, but so when I said emotional regulation, I meant we can only regulate our own emotions. We cannot regulate the child's emotions. That's something the child has to do for themselves. But we can definitely role model those. Just wanted to clarify when I said, regulating emotions, it's for ourselves and to role model.
No,
And then gradually
exactly.
children,
That,
yes,
that, yeah, that is
absolutely.
where my
So,
question is. It's about our emotions itself.
right.
So at times it is very difficult to control our own impulses, right? Let's say if we find that the child is going and grabbing a knife, uh,
Okay.
we might just act upon it. Okay, don't do that. That's just not right for you. And
Yes.
that is where it is similar to a negative action that they're doing.
Not
But
really. I mean, is it about the speed? Because you're not using any negative words there, right? It was an urgent situation and you told the child that it is not the right thing for you. And then when you take the knife away from the child, then you can sit down and calmly talk about it and offer them a butter knife, for example. If they really wanted to use a knife, you can offer them a butter knife to cut something which is, soft, a banana or, some bread or something like that.
right.
So
So
then,
it's
yes.
okay to be impulsive at the moment, but take your time, explain why that wasn't the right thing to do, and then probably provide an alternative,
Right.
right?
So, absolutely. So, there can be situations where it's unsafe for them physically. Those are moments where obviously we need to, respond. This is also a response. I wouldn't say that what else would you do, right? I mean, I don't think that's a reaction. It's, an immediate response which you take for the child's safety, but you don't blame the child. You don't give the child a lecture because you know that the child's intention was probably the child was curious, or maybe the child wanted to use a knife. They saw adults using, they have been seeing adults using knives from the very beginning of their lives.
Correct.
So they also want to use it. So then that preparation and that proactive intervention comes into place where the child has a child safe knife to use, right? From the time when they are able to, I mean, very early they can use a butter knife to cut a banana, for example.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Niti.
probably less than a year, younger than a year, the child could do that. Depends on the skills that they have developed. Yeah.
Sure. Noted.
But yes, lecturing does not help, blaming does not help, that kind of talk does not help. So it's important to identify if what we are doing is really helping here or not. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Bhavna.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, Niti. Great session. Thank you.
Good morning.
My question is, what would you recommend when a child seems like less social, such as not greeting or responding to others, or retreating into a shell around people they interact with on a regular basis, or even hesitating to speak to us, like their family members as well in front of others?
So when we say social, many of these terms, what we think about them is not very clear. When we say social development, it doesn't necessarily mean being, outspoken or what do you call it, an extrovert, etc.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so when we see children in the environment, which is a social environment, they're socially free to interact with each other. Of course, you can see some children talking about something, children working together, where all these situations would involve social skills,
hmm,
skills such as deciding who will bring what, for example, or deciding, okay, it's my turn and then it's your turn. That is also social skills, or,
Yeah.
waiting for listening to the other person and responding accordingly. That's another social skill. Um, like just yesterday when I was observing in the environment, this child needed help because the chalky and the materials were a bit cumbersome for the child to wind up. And then this another child comes in and she asks, can you help me? And the child then helps. But then in that process, this other child who came to help at a point starts to take over the process, more. And that's when the first child wanted to, convey to the friend that, no, this is my work. You are here to help, in a way, she was trying to say, no, this is my work. You hold a chalky from that side. So she wanted to direct
Right.
how to wind up that process in her own way. She didn't want him to do everything for her. So
Yeah.
all of these, situations call out for social skills. So, of course, as long as you are doing what you have to do, don't push the child. When we push the
Yeah.
child to, greet somebody, or we start to feel awkward or start to feel embarrassed that my child hasn't greeted so and so person. Stop doing that. I mean, because have the end goal in mind, the fully
Yeah.
functional human being, right? So you may not get there right now. It's a process. You show them, you role model how you greet people, and don't have those feelings of expectation. She shouldn't feel like, oh, now I'm expected to. Probably she will greet faster, and it's wise on the adult's part, whoever are involved, to not give a judgment or not
Yeah.
pass a look which indicates something to the child. So that's something you could probably talk to those people
Yeah.
about, and maybe say, oh, that's all right. And we're often talking about children in front of others, right? Oh, no, she's shy. No, generally she's like this, and generally she's like that. And the children are hearing all those things. That's not respectful, actually. So when we mean respect the child, then we mean treat them like an individual next to you, and a human being next to you, even if they are younger. That doesn't mean that they're any less of the human being. So if you would not talk about, an adult to somebody else in front of them, you would not
Yes.
do that to your child as well. So again, so we need to understand child development. That's a framework in mind, because people always ask some recipe. Always remember the framework, the understanding that children are absorbing. We cannot make them do things. They will develop at their own time. At a neutral moment, maybe you could talk, just share. It could be a book about greetings. It could be, just to talk about it. I met so and so and I greeted them like this or like that. Bring it up at neutral moments.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel like, mama just wants me to greet people when they come.
Yeah.
So think about it in a more natural way. They do
Great.
know how to
Thank you.
greet. All children greet us here, actually, because it's just, nobody tells them to do it, and they begin to do it naturally at some point or the other. We wait for them for that to happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, most welcome. So no else, but, or it's past, it's 11:11, so maybe we can then say goodbye until we meet next time. Yes, I hope it was useful.
Niti, is it possible for us to get that presentation and that link of the video?
The link to the recording? Yeah, I think so. I mean, the link would have the presentation in it, I suppose, because it was shared.
Okay.
Yes. See. All right. Bye then. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Welcome.